Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, my lovely student. How are you today? With me again, Mr. Labai. Today we are in this subject, Dictation and Reproduction. I would like to tell you a very simple story about a Rothschild family. The question is, have you ever heard about a Rothschild family before? Or Meyer Amsel Rothschild? Today I'm going to tell you a story about a Rothschild family. What you need to know is a Rothschild family, they control most of the money through the world today. Not only in America, Germany, but also around the world. Around the world. And this family is often in word controversy, such as Illuminati, Freemason, if you know about that. You might search it on the internet. You will find a lot of it. But we are not going to talk about that issues today. We are not going to talk about the Illuminati, the Freemason, or maybe the relationship of this Rothschild family with Namrud in the age of Abraham. Now, we are talking about a unique story from this Rothschild family. You know, in the year of 1800, there was an incident in this family. One of the Rothschild children is kidnapped by a criminal. So this Rothschild, he has several children. One of them is named James de Rothschild. So James is kidnapped on his way home from his summer vacation. And this was discovered after a letter come from an unknown person. Of course, the criminal. He left the letter near the entrance of the Rothschild residence. In the letter, it was stated that one of his children had been kidnapped and now was in the place of the criminal. After knowing this information, the James father, Rothschild, he took an action by making an important announcement that was broadcast through Frankfurt, Germany, that very day. The content of the announcement is aimed to the criminal, of course, to give up their son today. The reward given was a very large amount. It's about 10 million euros. If we take it to Indonesian currency, more or less it's approximately 17 trillion rupiah. That's a lot. That's a lot. 17 trillion. Of course, this news spread and reached to the ear of the criminal who kidnapped James. But however, the criminal did not respond to the announcement because they believe that if they wait 1 or 2 more days, the chance of the prize money will be even greater. So they think the reward will increase tomorrow. So they don't respond about it. Why? The question is why they think like that. Why the criminal think like that? This is based on their knowledge that the Rothschild are the richest people in the world who have enormous assets around the world. And finally, the day passed without James' news from the criminal, because the criminal did not respond to the announcement from the Rothschild. And the next day, the Rothschild made another announcement. The content of this announcement is still about the prize or the reward, but only 1 million euros from the last one. 10 million euros. So it decreased the price, and by one condition, that if the child must be turned to his mansion today. That the condition. So Again, this announcement was broadcast through the Frankfurt and many other nearby cities. The criminals were indeed waiting for this news, but they were a little shocked and disappointed when they found out that the prize money given had decreased drastically from the 10 million euros to 1 million euros. So the criminal conclude that the reduction in reward was a bluff. It is only a strategy. They 100% believe that this Rothschild affection for their children is worth far more than money. They believe this reward only a bluff. It is not will happen. Tomorrow they will change it. This is what they think. And finally, they decided not to respond to this news too, and wait for the latest information from Rothschild. And after 2 days from the last announcement, the new announcement arrived. They had been waiting for was announced as well. But what is astonishing that the reward given to return gem is not up, it's not increased, but still down and down and down, from 1 million euros to 10,000 euros. Wow, that incredibly cheap. It's so cheap. Yeah. But yet, the criminal, they still ignore it because they still think it is only bluff. It's only a bluff. They will not do it for his family, because there are no parents who don't care about their children, right? That what they're thinking about the Rothschild phenomena. And finally, set 2 more days later, a shocking announcement was received by the criminal. What the content of the announcement is: if the criminal don't hand over their children within 24 hours, then the assassin from the Rothschild family will find them and silence them forever. It means the assassin will hunt them and kill them. They don't care about the children anymore. Later on, after reading this announcement, of course, the criminal become afraid. Instead of luck, they were stunned. So, in that night, before 24 hours, the criminal fearfully handed gems over to the Rothschild, but he not give it directly. The criminal leave gems in the corner of the Frankfurt, Germany, which later on was found by the police officer. And of course, the family was delighted to have gems rediscovered. But that's the end of the story of the kidnap. But the story is not finished here. And after several months later, after the incident, one of local journalists meet the Rothschild and then ask the story of the kidnapping of his son to him, because he want to find out the real information. Because according to his analysis, there is something strange about the incident, more precisely regarding to the gift or the reward given to the criminal, which should have increased, but instead of increase, it decreased. Every single information, every single announcement has met. And at the end, it end up with the threat to the criminal. So this is, it need a clarification. The journalist feeling, you know. So, what's next? Of course, the Rothschild convey a big secret behind the gift, or behind the decrease of value of the reward to the journalist, why there is not a single time increase the value of the reward, but it always decrease. The Rothschild said that every human being has a price. Every human being has a price, even for his own child. She said that the first day the child was kidnapped, the child was still pure and clean. It means whatever the criminal gives to his son, he will throw it away, even the food. So when the criminal give him something, they will throw it away. And this is shown a very high pride of my son, and of course a very high value too. And for this kind behavior, this is priceless. I dare to give the criminal 10 million euros for his pride, as long my children back to me. I would dare to give the criminal 10 million euros. But the next day it was no longer the same, because the child was getting hungry. They hungry and want to eat the food that the criminal gave him. So my son eat the food that the criminal gave him. And of course, this is reduce the sacred value of my son. He lost his pride. So I have therefore reduced the price from the 10 million euros to 1 million euros. And the next day, I 100% sure my son had the courage to ask the criminal for food. He dared to ask the criminal for food, because the food that was given by the criminal was never enough. So he asked it. This made my son lose his purity, and of course, at the end, the value of his appreciation was also drastically reduced. And the impact is the value of his pride is no more than 1,000 euros for me. Then in the following days, of course, he had completely lost his purity. The only reason why I want to have him back is because he is my son. Only that. The only reason I want to have him back because he is my son. However, his pride is no longer there. This is the reason I stopped giving the reward to the criminal, but trying to intimidate them by sending my man, my assistant, to find out my children, my child, and arrest the criminal if they meet them. And probably I will kill them. So it is a story about the Rothschild family. It is at the end. Now I really want you to write down every single word that you listen to this story, and please prepare yourself, of course, to make to reduplication or to reproduction this story. You might make a new YouTube channel, or just make a video or record it and then send it to YouTube and send to me the link as usual in the model. Thank you very much and see you again next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.